1 minute. Everyone, please take your seats. 1 minute till the start. Fifteen seconds. Hello and welcome. This is a debate by the candidates for the Illinois House of Representatives in the 91st District. They are Democrat Sharon Chung, who already serves on the McLean County Board, and Republican Scott Preston, who is on the Normal Town Council. This event is co-sponsored by WGLT, WCBU, Illinois State University's Center for Civic Engagement, ISU's Student Government Association, the Bloomington-Normal branch of the NAACP, and the League of Women Voters of McLean County. I'm Charlie Schlenker, along with Colleen Reynolds from the League of Women Voters and Kelly Foy, the editor of the student media outlet The Vidette. We are your moderators. Timekeepers from the League are Mary O'Brien and Julie Prandy. Also joining us for the event is our audience. Thanks to everyone for attending this forum. This debate will feature questions developed by the panelists with public input from those submitted at WGLT.org and at the Bloomington Farmers Market, and input from the sponsoring organizations. There will also be time for opening and closing statements and for responses or rebuttals by the opposing candidates. Openings and closing statements will be 2 minutes each. The order of opening statements was decided by a coin flip, with Sharon Chung going first. Closing statements will begin with Scott Preston. Each question will have a 2-minute response time plus a 1-minute optional rebuttal or redirect statement by the candidates. The moderators may choose to call on candidates to make clarifying comments and to pose follow-up questions as needed. Responses to follow-up questions will be a 1-minute time limit. We'll ask as many questions as time permits during this forum. Because this event has a set time limit, candidates may have an abbreviated but equal amount of time to answer the last question. And that brings us to our opening statement by Sharon Chung. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Charlie, and good evening to those of you here in the audience and listening or watching from home. My name is Sharon Chung, and I'm running to be your next state representative for the 91st District. I would first like to thank WGLT, WCBU, the League of Women Voters of McLean County, the Bloomington-Normal branch of the NAACP, the ISU Center for Civic Engagement, and the ISU Student Government Association for hosting and sponsoring this event here tonight. So again, my name is Sharon Chung, and I've served our community since 2018 on the McLean County Board, serving on the Land Use and Development, Health, and Justice Committees. I'm proud of the work my colleagues and I have done, bringing more transparency, accessibility, and accountability to county government. And it will be an incredible honor if I'm able to take this advocacy and servant leadership to Springfield if I am elected in November. I am a lifelong Illinoisan, born to Korean immigrants. My parents instilled in me values that I still carry with me: hard work, respect, kindness, and empathy. These values have served me well in my career as a violin and viola teacher, and I believe they have also served me well in recent years in my political life. With my background as a professional musician and a teacher, I've played on concert stages throughout Central Illinois for over 2 decades, first as a student attending Illinois Wesleyan, and again when I moved back to the area as a newlywed with my husband 13 years ago. We have 2 daughters, 10 and 7, and they are the main reason for why I ran for office in the first place. I've always encouraged my students and my own children to be problem solvers and to lead by example, and running for office in 2018 was my way to give back to the community we chose to call home. I'm thrilled to take my record of fighting for working and middle-class families, of speaking up for those who don't feel as if their voices are being heard, and my fierce work ethic to a larger stage by representing the 91st District in Springfield. I look forward to our discussion tonight. Thank you.
And Scott Preston.
Well, thank you, Charlie, and good evening, everyone. Thank you to WGLT, WCBU, the NAACP, Illinois State Student Government Association, and the Center for Civic Engagement, as well as the League of Women Voters here in McLean County. All of you for sponsoring this event this evening. I'm Scott Preston, and I'm running to be your next state representative in the 91st District. I am born and raised here in Bloomington-Normal. I'm educated here. I am a proud alum of Normal West High School and Illinois State University, where we stand this evening. My mom, growing up, she was a special education teacher in District 87. She taught and spent her career at Raymond School over on Bloomington's west side. My dad was an engineer in the heating plant here at ISU for his entire career. Both were union members, but it was really my mom's passion for the work that she did every single day that instilled in me really, it was an inspiration for me growing up, and it was something that was such a prevalent piece of my entire childhood for service, for helping people who need help the most, for being an advocate for people who need it, and working hard to solve real problems. I am so proud to be the husband of my wife, Allie, who's with us this evening. And equally proud that her and I welcomed our first child, son, Jack, 7 weeks and 1 day ago today. And as I think about Jack's future here in Illinois, I think about the issues that we face. Illinois is a great state with great people, but our state government has held us back for far too long. I think about the corruption that has plagued our state government. It's embarrassing, and it has been something that has taken on for years and years out of Springfield. And I think about safety. A safe Illinois is a strong Illinois. Those are the priorities I hope to bring, and I would be honored to earn your support. I hope to do that this evening. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you both. You're listening to a debate between the candidates for state representative in the 91st District. The newly drawn district takes in parts of central Bloomington and Normal and stretches west to Bartonville and East Peoria. The first question comes from Kelly Foy of the Vidette.
And so, how do you guys plan to ensure Illinois remains a strong state for post-secondary education? The Illinois State University Center for Civic Engagement is among the many who want to know.
Sharon Chung?
Thank you so much, Kelly, for that question. I think that it's something that's very much on our minds here tonight, as the debate is here set on the stage of Illinois State University. We have here in Bloomington-Normal some really great things in here with an economic driving and economic development council here. So to really help make sure that we do have jobs for people who actually after they graduate from the university, that they do have places of employment, and then possibly also places where they can live and work and spend their money. Here especially, I think we've really had a great chance here in Bloomington-Normal, McLean County of really developing a really wonderful growing community. If you look here in McLean County, we've really actually have grown quite a bit with a lot of the businesses that we've had here, and I have a lot of friends who've been recently hired by Rivian and other businesses here in Bloomington-Normal. And I think one of the other things we should probably start to address, that's one thing that people are discussing a lot lately, is probably also making sure we have affordable housing available for people. I do know that the Economic Development Council had a study out that said that maybe we're thousands of units short, possibly, for people here. That's something that we can also look at so that we can really entice students to stay here after they live. For me personally, I actually moved back to Bloomington-Normal because it was a town that I really enjoyed, where I went to college, moved away for many years, came back because I knew this was a place where I wanted to start my family with my husband, and we've been here now for 13 years. And we've enjoyed it, and we've really enjoyed seeing where it has grown in that time.
And Scott Preston, 2 minutes. How do you plan to ensure Illinois remains a strong state for post-secondary education?
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And Kelly, who originally asked that question, my apologies for forgetting the Vidette in one of the many sponsors of tonight. Thanks for that question. This is a personal one for me, especially given the setting where we're at and where we're standing tonight. I loved my time as a student here at ISU. I graduated in 2010, which in some respects seems like it was just yesterday, and in a number of other respects seems like it has been, a number of decades in the past in a different life. But it was really here that I found myself and my passion and what I want to do with my life. It's really here that I developed an excitement for not only politics, but for this community that I had been in my entire life up to that point, but had seen from a totally new standpoint being a student. Civic engagement is something that's personal to me. I was involved, student government's one of the sponsors this evening. I look back on my time in SGA so fondly. I'm wearing my Reggie socks even tonight in celebration. But one of the things that I take away, because I know that time is ticking, is through my student government experience, one of my fondest memories was participating in and leading the ISU students who went down and lobbied during a lobby day in Springfield at the time for MAP grant reinstatement funding, and seeing how voices of everyday people can make a difference and can change policy, whether it's Springfield, Washington, or City Hall here locally, is important. My last thing on the personal stuff aside, state funding for higher education is critical, and the proportion of ISU's budget that is state funded has dropped continuously over the last couple of decades. It is somewhere in the teens percentage-wise of their entire budget is from the state. We have some of the best institutions here in Central Illinois and in this 91st district, and we need to make sure we're supporting them every way we can. Thank you.
Thank you both. There is an optional 1-minute response or rebuttal time. Sharon Chung, do you want to exercise that?
I think I'm okay, thank you.
Okay, and Scott? Okay.
I'll be glad to. Yeah, you bet. Our educational institutions are such a bedrock, not only of our culture here locally and in this 91st district, which they absolutely are, and not only a piece of our local economy, an economic driver, but having 21,000 students just at ISU alone in Normal, having students from Wesleyan, having students from Illinois Wesleyan in Bloomington, over in East Peoria and that end of the district, having people from ICC's campus, it brings a sense of pride and joy in our community. It brings an energy level, and making sure that we are, a big thing I've been focused on in my time in Normal City Hall, is making sure that we have opportunities and that we are attractive for people after they graduate and we educate them here to then want to plant roots, want to stay here, build careers, and build families here in this community. Thank you.
All right, and so a quick follow-up question. As a district with the many vibrant community colleges and universities, how would you seek to support the students within the district?
1 minute to Sharon Chung.
Oh, thank you. To support this, sorry, can you say that again?
As a district with many vibrant community colleges and universities, how would you seek to support the students within the district?
Yes, thank you. Here, especially with Governor Pritzker and his latest budget for the fiscal year 2023, they've actually put a lot more money into higher education budgets. Also making sure that MAP grants are funded for college students. These are all the things that I think that Governor Pritzker and the Democrats have really made a priority here in Illinois. We could see that back even with the evidence-based funding bill that happened back in 2017. I actually lobbied for that quite a bit, and making sure that not only are we funding early education, pre-K, K through 12, and then college, just making sure that we have, because strong schools do build strong communities, and I think that we're really heading towards that. And then to help, and if I were to be elected, then I would ensure that we can really bring a lot of that back here.
And Scott Preston, 1 minute on how to support the students in the district.
So I'm in my third term on Normal's Town Council here. It's crazy how time flies. I first ran for council back when I was a junior at ISU, 21 years old. And I lost that race to, at the time, a 24-year incumbent. I joked that the me of today would probably not have voted for the me of back then when I was running, but it was a great experience. And the driving factor behind that for me was that in Bloomington-Normal specifically, college students are the single largest demographic of Normal's population. To all the students in here, you guys are about 1/3 the entire population of Normal. There are 6 city council members in your city hall, And I thought if we're 1/3 the population, we should be at least 1/6 the representation in local government. 4 years later, I lost that first race 4 years later, was fortunate to be elected as the youngest council member in Normal's history. And I hope that record is broken, potentially by somebody in here. Thank you.
And thank you, candidates. Colleen Reynolds has the next question, and the first answer will go to Scott Preston.
And this question is from the League of Women Voters. What are your budget priorities for Illinois, and what are the most important budget challenges facing our state?
It's a great question. So there are a couple pieces to how Illinois is operated that I think there is a lot of room for improvement on, and I think has been holding our communities, our families, and our businesses and our job creators back. One of which is spending in our state budget in terms of, from a positive standpoint, budget priorities should be the core services that the state provides, our education institutions being part of that, infrastructure being part of that, and other human services, being a part of that as well. But there's also opportunity to make some real cuts and to reduce some of the wasteful spending that's coming out of Springfield. The easiest and most obvious example is automatic pay raises that were built in by legislators for legislators, that they will automatically get increases in pay without ever having to vote on it again. Things like that are low-hanging fruit and need to be cut, and there's plenty of it. Thanks.
And Sharon Chung.
Yes, thank you. As we've already talked about a lot about tonight, we've already talked a lot about education. I think that that's, of course, a huge budget priority, especially for here in Bloomington-Normal and beyond. I think also we have to really talk about infrastructure, and we've passed an infrastructure bill in Springfield. And not only does that come with people who are working in those jobs. So we're talking about skilled, trained workers, union workers, and making sure that we also provide that vocational training so that we have skilled, trained workers working on infrastructure all throughout all throughout the state. And I've seen that as I've knocked on doors all throughout the 91st District, driving out to East Peoria, driving out to Washington, driving out to Bartonville, and then even here within McLean County, seeing those road projects that have been happening, and knowing that we've had people who are being paid a fair living wage, and being able to fix our roads and things like that, just to really provide good infrastructure. I'm also wanting to really make sure that here in Illinois, there's been talk, I guess, about it not maybe having problems with budget in the past. We've now have passed balanced budgets under Governor Pritzker. We've been paying back our debts and the bill backlog, and we have to really thank the comptroller for a lot of the work that she's been doing to put our state back into really good financial shape, making sure that we are paying our bills on time, and then we've also gotten these credit upgrades. So that's really been happening under the Democratic leadership that is in Springfield today, and I want to make sure that we continue on that trend.
And optional 1-minute response if you want it, Mr. Preston.
I do, thank you. I believe that the second part of your question, which I neglected to address in my original response, was talking about where there needs to be more focus, and unquestionably, the state public pension unfunded liability in Illinois is something that is long overdue from being addressed. That is something that, as I look at that situation, that all of us know exists, needs to be addressed with all stakeholders in the room, with a fair approach that acknowledges what is, what is legally possible, but also what is committed and what the state has promised to our employees and certainly to our retirees to this point, without question. But it takes me to my time in City Hall in Normal, where we are subject to unfunded mandates from the state down on our local government that we have to address. At the end of the day, in City Hall, we just have to solve problems. We don't get the out that the state does, and frankly, I think we need more of the get it done and solve problems mentality down in Springfield.
Thank you, Scott. 1 minute.
Thank
Sharon
you.
Chung.
Actually, pensions are a thing that a lot of people do bring up. And a pension, though, is a promise. And that's what I've kind of said to a lot of the unions that I've spoken with, and I've gotten a lot of their support and endorsements because I do want to ensure that the pension is a promise, that people do get the money that they have paid into it. But we do have to really make sure as well that we do bring people to the table. It sounds like the governor and the General Assembly, people are committed to really trying to fix this as opposed to sort of these shortcuts that had happened throughout the years. So, I've been endorsed by the AFL-CIO, AFSCME, UAW, Great Plains Laborers District, the IFT, IEA, all these unions who know my commitment to making sure that the pension is a promise.
I have a quick follow-up, and that is, I know, Scott, I think you mentioned human services. I didn't hear either one of you, though, specifically point out mental health. And as you know, we have a mental health crisis, not only in this state, but in this country. Any thoughts about resources that need to be devoted in that direction?
Absolutely, and in my answer, mental health certainly was encompassed in what I was suggesting with the human service piece of it. Mental health is a crisis. It was a crisis back in 2019, and since the pandemic kind of ravaged all of our communities and the entire world the last 2 years, it has only become a bigger and bigger issue. Having a state that is focused on trying to address that, doing it in a way that's actually effective and that actually helps people and that actually reaches the people that it needs to is critical, but we absolutely need those resources coming from all fronts, collaborations from state, local, human services, and the like.
Sharon Chung, 1 minute.
Yes, thank you. I've been really proud to be on the McLean County Board, where we have talked a lot about mental health here in recent years. We have the Mental Health Action Plan, which was passed back in 2014, and we just passed a revised version of it. And we've really brought a lot of people in the community to the table. I've attended a few of those meetings. We also have a behavioral health forum a week from today, which really shows our community's commitment to mental health. We're bringing all the people together, see what we can do to really help address that, and it is a priority here in our community, and I would love to see that being taken, honestly, as sort of a blueprint to the rest of the state to show how we have really made it a commitment and a priority to it here in McLean County.
This 91st Illinois State House Candidates Debate is co-sponsored by WGLT, WCBU, Illinois State University Center for Civic Engagement, ISU Student Government Association, the Bloomington-Normal branch of the NAACP, and the League of Women Voters of McLean County. And the next question comes from Kelly Foy, and Sharon Chung will start the answer.
The League of Women Voters, independent voter Lisa Wild, and multiple people surveyed at the Bloomington Farmers Market said they want to know what your position is on the right of privacy of the individual to make reproductive choices and how you would try to change Illinois to meet that position.
Yes, thank you. I believe I actually answered this in a League of Women Voters survey, so thank you for this question. I know that it is something that's in a lot of people's minds. I am a woman, I am pro-choice 100%, and I support a woman's right to choose unequivocally. I have 2 young daughters. I'm honestly really frightened by a lot of the things that are going around nationwide right now, making these laws that are really preventing women from getting the health care that they need in times in their lives. You hear about stories about bounties in certain states of trying to find women who are getting procedures done in other states and somehow awarding people bounties for sort of snitching on them and things like that. Also, I've been very, very concerned about there's been stories about health tracking apps that are sort of tracking women's cycles, and that somehow they can use that data to prosecute a woman if she actually could possibly not be truthful, or guess with her cycle or whatever they do. So those sorts of things really do concern me. I want to make sure that a woman has the right to choose and is able to discuss that with her provider, a trusted provider, and it does have the resources to be able to make that choice.
And Scott Preston.
Thank you. This is an issue that I'm very sensitive to. I have spent the last 2+ years at the side of my wife, Allie, as she has gone through 3 rounds of in vitro fertilization, IVF treatments, to get to a point where we could finally start our family. and our baby son Jack was born. I fully respect that every person's journey, every woman's journey to starting a family is unique. That's something that all of us should respect, and I certainly do.
1 minute responses. Sharon, did you want one?
I just would like to reiterate, though, that I have been also endorsed because of this is an issue that I've talked to so many people on the door at the doors. A woman actually hugged me 3 times the other day because she was so happy that I was running and that I was pro-choice and that I stood by her right to choose. I've been endorsed by Personal PAC and Planned Parenthood of Illinois for my commitment to this, and it's an issue that I'll be fighting for. And it's one of the reasons why I got into politics in the first place when I was in college. It's something that I will be fighting for years to come.
I'll take the next question. It's been partially answered, but partially not already. Do you think the state is doing enough to increase access to effective mental health care? And would you do anything differently? And Scott, you were first.
Thank you. Do I think the state has done enough? No, in the sense that in so many real, tangible ways, it's not possible to do enough because the problem will continue to exist for far too many people in our communities, in our families, around at our workplaces, in our classrooms. The need to address and help individuals in our community through mental health services is critical. And I think that the state has a role. I also don't think that the state is the sole entity that should have a role in it. I think it takes a collaborative approach. I think having state resources, having local stakeholders, local governments, local nonprofits, community leaders, healthcare involved is the way to address the situation and address the issue. And no, I don't think it will ever fully be enough. Across the board.
Sharon Chung.
Yes. As we've been kind of seeing, especially with the news this past, over the summer, when we were discussing the Mental Health Action Plan and to approve the revised version of it, we really had realized, there's a reason why McLean County decided to do this Mental Health Action Plan in the first place. We realized that this was something that we probably had to take on ourselves as a county. So that means that definitely was not supported by the state. I think that one of the things we'll have to look at is to really make sure that it's invested in at all levels, from making sure that we have early intervention services and all those sorts of, and making sure that people get the addiction treatment that they need, and public safety and education, like all of these things. It does take a village, and we've noticed, especially here with the Mental Health Action Plan, as we kind of came together to revise it this year, is that there's a lot of community groups and organizations that are doing this work. They sometimes seem to be doing it in a sort of silo fashion, and we're really trying to bring these silos together. And even so, if we have trouble with that here, when it's something that we've made it a priority, it's something that really needs to be addressed statewide.
And 1 minute responses. Scott, you would go first if you wanted.
I'll just reiterate that I think anytime you have an issue that so clearly, in my mind, lends itself to collaboration of community organizations, of units of local government, of state government, anytime you have an opportunity that lends itself to that, we should do it. And to the extent that those efforts can be as meaningful and actually help people who need help, and be effective and efficient, I'm a big proponent of.
All righty. You're listening to WCBU and WGLT and a candidates debate for the 91st State House seat. The next question is from Colleen Reynolds, and Sharon Chung will have first answer.
What needs to happen in Illinois to strengthen small businesses? We know a lot of them went through a rough time during the pandemic. Many did not survive, although many entrepreneurs created their own business. How can we help them and support them better?
Yes. Here in McLean County, we've been quite fortunate to have businesses that have actually thrived during the pandemic. So we've had Rivian, who have been hiring thousands of people. Same with Ferrero, who just expanded upon their facilities. And we have, constant wind and solar projects that are happening here that happened throughout the pandemic. These are things that I look at as being very encouraging, especially for our economic and job and climate here and business climate here. What I've been really interested in is seeing we have the Economic Development Council, and we also have the Small Business Development Council, and they've really, I've been very interested in watching for a long time what they've been doing and sort of working with people who have an idea and encouraging these entrepreneurs. We have so many students and so much local talent here, homegrown talent, and I'm happy that we have these sorts of resources here and seeing what we can do to even encourage that more. There could be a student in this room that has that next great, huge idea. And, we want to make sure that we can encourage that here. I also want to make sure that large corporations and businesses do pay their fair share of taxes so that these smaller businesses don't have to take on the burden quite as much. That's something that I think that we might have to address as well.
And Scott Preston.
Thank you. This is an important one. Personally, I'm a small business owner, and I have been for over a decade now. And especially in the earlier years, whether I succeed or fail is on me, right? And at the end of the day, creating something out of nothing is a unique experience that entrepreneurs get that not all fields experience. There's also a lot of risk involved, and for individuals and groups of people who come together to start small businesses, who work in the businesses and try to grow them, or to our larger businesses as well, it is clear that while we are, I often term it as an in spite of community here in McLean County, that we have a thriving, vibrant, diverse local economy in spite of the fact that we're in the state of Illinois. State government has not been helping that cause near to the extent that it could. Our taxes are too high, our regulations are too burdensome, and making sure that we are focusing on people who can be job creators, create opportunity, that they are able to do so in a way that fosters that kind of innovation, not holds it back. And this is something I feel strongly about, and I'm honored to have the support of small business leaders across this district. I'm honored to have the support of the Chamber, the Illinois Chamber of Commerce, the National Federation for Independent Business, which is the largest group of small businesses. These small local mom and pops that are not the national chains are critical to our local economy and most around the state and country, and making sure that we're fostering an environment that is conducive to them growing and staying here is a top priority.
And 1 minute response periods if you want them. Sharon, you would have first option.
Yes, thank you. Have to say that I'm sometimes a little baffled about my opponent saying that, businesses in Illinois is doing all these things, that we're in this state, and yet we have growing, thriving businesses here locally. Something that I'm not quite sure how I can wrap my brain around it. But, it's something that I am proud of here, that we can see that happening. Something is clearly happening well. We've fostered this sort of thriving environment for small businesses, for even slightly larger businesses, and for that entrepreneurial spirit. I'm excited to see what we can do to even take that to other parts throughout the 91st District and throughout the state. People can kind of look and see what we've done here. I'm proud of it, and I want to take that message to Springfield and to the rest of the state.
Scott Preston, response?
Yeah, to my opponent's confusion, if you ask small businesses, if you ask the EDC or the Chamber or other people who are stakeholders in this process, the answer will become clear. Something that we have been doing in Normal that I'm very proud of is creating an environment where businesses want to be and can afford to be. We've been doing it not because of the state of Illinois, but in many ways in spite of. And that's something we got to change down in Springfield.
I have a quick follow-up. The Fair Tax Amendment failed, and I'm curious if you would both share with me your perspectives on the need or not, the reason that you would have voted against it. I think you want to start with Sharon. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I actually was very disappointed that the fair tax amendment failed last year. It was, the misinformation around it was supported by a billionaire who left Illinois as soon as, he just didn't want to play in the sandbox, and he took his toys and left the state. The fair tax was really one of the ways that we could have really addressed a lot of the problems, the things that we'd put the extra burden on working and middle-class families on the tax, with the flat tax that we have here. The fair tax really could have solved a lot of issues. I was really disappointed when it didn't happen, but again, when you're sort of going up against a billionaire who wants to make more money for himself, and then when, his candidates didn't win this past primary, that he took his toys and left. But it's something that I voted for, and I proudly voted for back last year. I would love to see that try and happen again, maybe with that gentleman not being in the state anymore.
Scott Preston, 1 minute on the fair tax amendment.
Yeah, I'm somewhat amused. The effort for the progressive income tax was pushed by the other party's billionaire, top of the ticket as well. I think that, clearly both parties have high-profile billionaires in Illinois, and to suggest that that was not a signature initiative of Governor Pritzker just isn't truthful. It was. I proudly stood with the majority of this district and the majority of Illinois that said we don't want increased taxes. The Democrat state treasurer, Mike Frerichs, Democrat, even has suggested on his own accord that the fair tax could have opened the door to taxing retirement income. That's something I don't believe in at all. I'm not willing to open the door on that. I'm not willing to raise taxes on the middle class and on working families, and that progressive income tax would have done both.
Okay. Scott Preston will have the first answer on the next question. What should the state do to better safeguard and remove discrimination against LGBTQ people? Scott?
That's a great question. I fully support, as I think we all should, the rights of every individual to be who they are, to love who they love, to express themselves how they want to express themselves, and whatever we can do within our own hearts, within our own communities and across the state to make sure that all people are treated with respect and with dignity as human beings. A sense of humanity is unquestionable. That is absolutely something that I'm unwavering on.
And Sharon Chung.
Yes, thank you. I've been proudly endorsed by Equality Illinois, which is a very great organization here in Illinois, fighting for LGBTQ rights and fighting for LGBTQ advocacy. They've done some really great things here throughout the state, bringing a lot more visibility to issues surrounding LGBTQ community. One of the things that I think that we can do is just make sure that people do feel supported here and locally in Bloomington-Normal. I've really have been happy to see a lot of the LGBTQ advocacy organizations locally here. We've got the Prairie Pride Coalition. I am actually listed as a welcoming business with my my violin and viola studio and my music business is that I've been recognized as being a welcoming business. So for LGBTQ students they will feel welcomed in my home when they come and play. Or I will make sure that I will unequivocally support and play weddings for LGBTQ people, and those are things that I think a lot of people have concerns about. So those are some things that I know that we've done here locally. I think that the state could also support them as well. Some of the things I've noticed, there's really, when I go vote and I knock on doors, I see on my voter list, I just see 2 genders. I'm wondering if there's a way that we can change that. I'm sure that there's probably a way, and maybe I will discuss with other organizations, see what we can do about things like that, just so that people can feel like that they are supported and that their identity is supported. And by the way, my pronouns are she and her.
Response periods if you want them. Scott, you're up first if you do.
All right, thanks.
All right. You are listening to a candidate forum with Republican Scott Preston and Democrat Sharon Chung. They are running for state representative in the 91st District in the November 8th election. This is WGLT and WCBU. Here is ISU Vidette Editor Kelly Foy.
What would you do if elected to improve racial justice and prevent future ethnic discrimination in the state?
First, Sharon.
Thank you. Well, as people can see here, and maybe at home, you can see that I am a person of color. I'm Asian American, proudly so. I feel one thing that I've heard as I've knocked on over 8,000 doors here since the spring, myself, knocked on all these doors, is one thing that people have heard that they've been so happy to see actually somebody running that is a woman and is a person of color. Because of that and my experience and sort of my upbringing and the things that I've experienced throughout my life, I know that I'm always going to stand up for racial justice. It's just kind of who I am. I've spoken out about it on the county board a couple of times. I've written letters to the editor about it for the Panagraph. These are things that are very, very near and dear to my heart. I've also in my advocacy on the county board, I've also stood up for people who feel like their voices haven't been heard in more marginalized communities, and I've been really proud of the work that I've done in that way. And I want to make sure that also, now that I'm not going to be on the board anymore, that my colleagues do take up that mantle after I'm gone in November. But those are sorts of things. I feel like if you have more people at the table who are people of color, people from marginalized communities, will bring a greater, richer experience, and we'll be able to fight for everybody that way.
And 2 minutes for Scott Preston.
Thank you. Illinois is a diverse state, and Bloomington-Normal and this 91st district, other parts of it, are becoming more diverse. And our culture is enhanced, our shared experiences are enhanced when we have a diverse range of individuals from different backgrounds with different experiences, making sure that everybody feels welcome and included in this community and across our state and our nation is absolutely something that I don't even think should be a question. I mean, it shouldn't even be questionable in people's minds.
Response periods if you want them.
I guess I would just also like to say that if I was elected, I'd be the first Asian American elected to the Illinois General Assembly outside the Chicagoland area, and I'd also be the first Korean American elected ever to the General Assembly in its history. And I am proud to be the first Asian to ever be elected in the history of McLean County back in 2018. These are things that are not lost on me, the sort of importance and the sort of representation that I will bring, because that's who I am as a person. I've fought really hard to get here, and I will fight for you too.
Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly commend my opponent on that. I think that is something that we should all strive to have be the case, across the state. That breaking barriers breaking barriers and becoming the first is a great thing and something that we should encourage. And I think that having diversity, I see a lot of students in here having diversity of age and life experience in our college students, as well is from a different standpoint, an important piece to making sure that every voice is represented and that every voice feels heard in their government.
And I believe Kelly Foy has a 1 minute follow-up question for you both.
So the Bloomington-Normal NAACP inquires how you plan to build meaningful relationships within the African American community.
And Sharon, you go first.
Okay, thank you. I was really pleased to have attended the NAACP banquet gala that was a couple of weeks ago, and I saw a really rich, vibrant community of African American people and allies from Bloomington-Normal there. It was such a great event, and listening to the speakers and how a lot of the things that they care about, and about racial justice and ending discrimination and things like that. And for what I've sort of alluded to this already, is that I've worked a bit on the county board in terms of racial justice and really making sure that people are heard. I've worked on issues in the McLean County Jail And so I've really wanted to make sure that people are heard and sort of standing up for them. That's just, again, as I've said already, it's just who I am as a person, and that's, I will continue to do that.
And Scott Preston.
Thank you. I did have the NAACP Freedom Fund gala on my calendar a couple Saturdays ago, but unfortunately our 7-week-old was in the hospital and I was not able to make it there that evening a couple Saturdays ago, I believe. But I think that something that is important to me in my public service, whether it's through Normal or being involved in United Way and so many other, the alumni board at ISU right here, or so many other pieces that make this community go, is engaging with people and being open and bringing people to the table and listening and wanting to learn and genuinely experience things together and from people who have different experiences. I am, perhaps to a fault sometimes, take listening very seriously. And I think there's a lot that can be gained from that, especially in public service. There's a lot of hyperbole across the country right now. There's a lot of political talk and rancor, and just being able to listen and have genuine conversations with people in your own community that you can learn from. I want to bring everybody to the table.
All righty, thank you. Scott, you will also have the first answer to the next question, which comes from Colleen Reynolds.
And the League of Women Voters is interested in knowing what steps should be taken to prevent gun violence in our communities. I know we only have 2 minutes.
It is a complex issue that there are so many contributing factors to. The thought of any parent getting a phone call about the unthinkable happening at their child's school is something that I hope nobody, and I know we all do, hope nobody has to ever hear or go through in their life. Whether it's at their school, whether it's in their neighborhood, or whether it's around the, elsewhere around the country. It takes a comprehensive approach to address that issue, from providing resources from education standpoint and making sure that we are meeting kids and people in their younger years where they are and giving them good examples and giving them a support system if they don't have that elsewhere that's positive and productive is a piece to it. Making sure that we're providing resources and focusing on people where they're at and giving them opportunity where they're at in life is another piece. Making sure that we have a strong and vibrant economy that gives people opportunity to work and to be productive and to grow in that sense of their life is another piece to it. And making sure that we focus our gun control laws that are already on the books here in the state of Illinois, that we enforce those in a sensible way that keeps them out of the hands of criminals, and working with our law enforcement community to do so is a final piece to that.
And 1 minute responses. Whoops, Sharon, you get 2 minutes.
Thank you, Charlie. It's something that has always been on my mind. My daughter is 10 years old, and when she was just 4 months old is when the Sandy Hook shooting happened. And I remember breaking down in my car that afternoon after hearing that news and thinking, I can't believe I just brought my young daughter into the world where things like this happen. And I remember when she was the age of those kids, and kind of looking at her, and then I think I heard about some other school shooting that happened around then, and thinking about making those sort of connections. And then now my younger daughter, she was in first grade last year, and that's how old those kids were during that shooting. It's something that is always on the forefront of my mind. And I do think that there are ways that we can even just sort of approach this more head on, maybe more immediately, is just making sure that we're protecting victims of domestic violence and abuse by making sure that their abusers aren't able to get guns, making sure that we do have really strong background checks, red flag laws, encouraging really safe storage of guns, and maybe even gun safety classes. These sorts of things, I think, could be really ways of just ensuring that we have safer communities overall. Today I received word that I was got the designation of being a gun sense candidate, which I'm really proud of, and hopefully I can sort of take on a lot of their issues if I am elected in November, and I can work with our really strong Moms Demand Action chapter that we have here already to really make sure that we have safer communities.
1 minute responses now will do it. And Scott.
I'm all right.
All right. Follow up?
Yeah, current proposed legislation defines an assault weapon. Describe your position on addressing assault weapons in Illinois regarding both a ban and dealing with the guns that are already in circulation. I believe I should go to Sharon first.
Okay, thank you. I think that these are things that are issues that people are talking about all around the nation, trying to figure out how to ban assault weapons, how to figure out what is an assault weapon, the people who have them already. These are sort of issues that we're going to have to really talk about and figure out how to sort of approach these head on. We're really fortunate here again that we have experts. People have been working on this legislation here locally in our Moms Demand Action chapter. They've been really at the forefront of a lot of advocacy here from McLean County and advocating on behalf of our community down in Springfield. So, I will have to definitely talk with them and also talk with other people and see what we can do to really try and see what we can do to approach this in a really effective way, and that we can also make sure that people don't fall through the cracks and there aren't any loopholes, so that we can really ensure that we have safe communities.
And Scott.
Yeah, I support the Second Amendment right of individuals who are lawful citizens and who are individuals who are responsible gun owners. I support that Second Amendment right. I also support enforcing the laws that are on the books in Illinois, and making sure that we aren't letting guns and assault weapons get in the hands of criminals and people who are dangerous to themselves or others. So,
Just a quick follow-up on that. The city of Chicago has 1,000 openings for police officers. Do you have any solutions for trying to enforce laws on the books when you don't have enough officers to do it?
is that directed to me?
Yes.
Yeah, so without putting the cart before the horse, talking about law enforcement recruitment and retention, I think ties into the criminal justice reform that the state just passed, and the impacts that that's having on the ground. That's something I don't know if we're planning to come to later. If we're not, I will be glad to include it in my closing. But there's a lot there.
And Sharon. 1 minute.
Yes, and I think a lot of the times, with law enforcement officers, like you're saying in Chicago, maybe they don't feel supported. There's, I haven't lived in Chicago for over a decade now, but it is a big part of our state. We want to make sure that they get the resources that they need, and that's something that was actually put in the Safety Act. Also making sure that here in McLean County, we did just pass a raise for the sheriff's department, making sure that the deputies get paid more, and that because a lot of them were actually going to other law enforcement agencies because they were going to get paid more there. So just to really make sure that people are paid for their work.
This is a debate between the candidates for the 91st State House seat. It's an open seat, no incumbent, and is contested by McLean County Board Member Sharon Chung and Normal Town Council Member Scott Preston. Scott, you're prescient because the Safety Act is next up. However, Sharon gets first crack at it. It is a love it or loathe it kind of bill, but given the respective party majorities in Springfield, it is here to stay. How should it be improved? Sharon, you're first.
Yes, thank you, Charlie. This is something that's people have been talking about a lot lately. I think it's been on the minds of people here as they're seeing that the bill is going to go into effect in January. There's also been quite a bit of misinformation being spread around it right now with these sort of new publications that look like actual news publications, but they're not. They're sort of super right-wing, sort of funded publications. And so they're sort of taking these a lot of fear-mongering which is happening, and not really being totally truthful with the facts of what the Safety Act brings. It's a smart on-crime approach really here. It's really making sure that people do get that a lot of the things that people have been talking about a lot is that they think that criminals are going to run free, and then, you know, that you can't hold anybody for any offenses here in Illinois anymore, and that's just not the case. What we're doing is just taking wealth out of the equation when it comes to people who are being held for crimes. And I've seen this firsthand, being on the McLean County Board and on the Justice Committee. I see the reasons why people are actually being held in the jail, and then a lot of times they don't actually talk to their public defender for 6 or 7 months. That's time that if they were sort of there on one of these more minor offenses, that's time that they actually could have been in the community, still probably working, taking care of their children, doing things like that. And it's what we're doing is really taking money out of the equation. It's just making sure that judges then will be able to look at the offenses and be able to make the determination if that person is a risk to the community that way.
And Scott Preston, 2 minutes on how you would improve the Safety Act.
Yeah, the Safety Act needs to be repealed, and in a very personal way, I've seen how this has impacted us on the ground. So I'm in my 3rd term on Normalstown Council, and I've sat across the table from our police chief after this was passed. In the middle of the night, 743 pages were dropped at 2 a.m., and a vote was called at 5 a.m. on that piece of legislation. That's how this Safety Act was passed. I've sat across the table from our police chief and hear him talk about how of our 84 sworn police officers in Normal PD, after that Safety Act was passed in the coming months thereafter, we lost 13 of those 84, a majority of which were mid-career, not eligible to retire yet. They were either leaving the state to stay in the industry or leaving the industry to stay in the state. That is the real, tangible, on-the-ground impacts of bad policy out of Springfield. I think not only the policy within the Safety Act, but the insane manner in which that legislation was rammed through in the middle of the night are both things that we need to change in Illinois.
All righty, we're getting close to time here, so I'm going to shorten the rebuttal response times to 30 seconds so you can get your full closings in. Sharon, 30 seconds.
Yes, to say that it was passed in the middle of the night is completely disingenuous because they've been talking about criminal justice reform since 2017. Language mirroring this final version of the bill had been introduced more than a year before the actual passage. So they've been discussing this for a long time. It's been on the table with all sorts of stakeholders, law enforcement agencies, victim support advocates, all those sorts of people all throughout the state. So to say that it was passed through the middle of the night is completely disingenuous because that's not how it happened.
And Scott, 30 seconds.
I'm kind of surprised that she would go to bat for the process that brought us the Safety Act. 743 pages were absolutely dropped at about 2 a.m., passed at 5 a.m. There were no hearings on that, and public hearings on that Safety Act specific legislation. And the notion that the Safety Act is one, and my opponent is one, that supports law enforcement, I think a lot of people in this room know that that's not the case. I am very proud to have the support and endorsement of all 4 sheriffs in this 91st district. And making sure we're supporting our first responders is critical.
And that response brings us to the end of the question period of the forum and 2-minute closing statements. Scott Preston, you went second for opening statements. You will go first for closings.
Thank you. Well, thank you again to WGLT. Let me make sure I've got my list here of all the sponsors. I don't want to leave the vedette out this time. WCBU, the NAACP, the League of Women Voters, the Daily Vedette, Student Government Association, and the ISU Center for Civic Engagement for hosting us. Thank you to all of you for being here tonight. It is great to see a lot of young faces, and it is great to see a lot of, like me, not as young as we may feel faces in the room. This election in this 91st district is about you and your family and your future. It's not about me, it's not about Sharon, it's about you. It's about issues that impact you every day. It's about how we can have a state government that works to solve them, that takes a genuine approach to just trying to make people's lives a little bit better. Authenticity matters. And you will hear a lot of hyperbole. My opponent will put hundreds of thousands more into just crazy and untrue ads that will clog up your mailboxes and your TV screens. But authenticity matters, and our community deserves better. We deserve people who are problem solvers, who will have conversations on the ground, who will work with people to address things for our community. I'm Scott Preston. That's what I want to do for you, and I'm asking for your vote for state representative on or before November 8th. Thank you.
And Sharon Chung, 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Charlie. So since I started campaigning in earnest this past spring, I've personally knocked on over 8,000 doors, and I'm talking to voters daily about the things that matter to them. People are concerned about paying their bills, about having safe schools and communities, and having someone in office that will truly represent them. Back in 2018, at a candidate forum, I brought my musical and political lives together in my closing statement, where I talked about how, as a violist, I have an innate ability to know how either to take the lead or offer a supporting role. And tonight, I would like to highlight something that is even more basic to my identity as a musician, and that is my ability to listen. One thing I tell my students time and time again, listening to oneself and one's own playing, is it does sound incredibly basic, but it's actually quite difficult to do well. And it takes an incredible amount of focus and concentration and discipline. And in my political life, I have listened. I listen and I empathize and I try to aid in finding solutions. It's who I am as a person, as a musician, as a teacher, and as a mother. The 91st District deserves someone who will truly listen and lead and work hard for us all. So thank you again to our moderators, Charlie, Colleen, and Kelly, and thank you again to our sponsors tonight for your commitment to voter education and engagement. I've enjoyed our conversation, and I trust that the voters will make the right choice by voting for a mother, a listener, and a fighter. I'm asking that you vote for me, Sharon Chung, for State Representative on or before November 8th. Thank you very much.
And thank you, candidates, for participating in this 91st Illinois House District Candidates Debate, co-sponsored by WGLT, WCBU, Illinois State University's Center for Civic Engagement, ISU's Student Government Association, the Bloomington-Normal branch of the NAACP, and the League of Women Voters of McLean County. Thanks to the other panelists, Kelly Foy, the editor of The Vedette at ISU, and Colleen Reynolds from the League of Women Voters. Thanks to our audio engineers, John Norton and Brady Johnson, program director Ryan Denham, the development staff of WGLT and WCBU, and development director Melissa Liebert. I'm Charlie Schlenker. For more election coverage in Central Illinois races, go to WGLT.org and WCBU.org. The election is Tuesday, November 8th. Please vote. Thank you and good night. This is WGLT Normal and WCBU Peoria.